my name's John Cordy, and no one does an unboxing video quite like me. Anyway, so folks may remember that at the time when the FM9 was announced, my sort of question at the time was, who's still going to buy an Axe FX3 now? Based on, at the time, basically they were at kind of parity, and you could do more or less most of what you could do with an Axe FX3 with an FM9. Now the answer has come fairly quickly. Now, as you'd expect, things have changed fairly quickly in the interim, and there are now a few kind of things that the Axe FX can do that at the moment the FM products aren't able to. Full res IRs is one of those things. Pitch on the reverb blocks hasn't come over to the FM stuff yet, and so I think that's the answer as to why you might still want an Axe FX3 over an FM9 or an FM3. Essentially, that is their flagship product, and that's the one that's going to be getting the most frequent and most significant updates, even if for a short amount of time there was relative parity between those devices in terms of what they can do. So, that's what this video is going to be about. Obviously this is a video about the FM9, which I've got a loaner of. I don't know for how long I'll have this, but I wanted to kind of do some videos with it, obviously, and just explore what we could do with this device. Obviously Leon Tudd is another great person to check out on YouTube for videos on the FM9 and exploring some of the things that he's done with it and all that sort of stuff, so I'd recommend watching some of that. One of the key reasons that I think the FM9 might interest people is that it doesn't have that limitation of 1 amp. So in the, for instance, FM3 or the Axe 8, which I see as the natural kind of predecessor to the FM9, you could only have 1 amp. You've got 2 amp blocks in this thing. So let's have a look. So I think when you get them side by side, it's quite apparent the size difference. The FM9 is, you know, almost double the size of an FM3, not quite, but that sort of thing. Obviously you probably already knew that, but that's the first time I'm seeing them next to each other, and I think that makes a significant impact, you know, in terms of choices for like a fly rig. I still think you might want to keep hold of your FM3 if you had to travel with it. Potentially that's going to be quite a bit easier to travel with than the FM9, which is considerably more bulky. In terms of inputs and outputs, let's have a look at the differences. So we've got an SPDIF in and an SPDIF out, MIDI on both, 2 sets of XLR outputs on the FM9, which is nice, and 2 sets of inputs as well. Wait, 3. We've got 2 additional stereo inputs there, lots more pedals. Phones, I do have phones on my FM3 as well, that back covers it, ground lift on both. But I guess the main kind of thing that we've got going on here is that you've got way more buttons here, because you've essentially got an FC6 attached to your FM3, which was what quite a lot of people were doing anyway. So let's get in and have a closer look at what the FM9 can do. I've just loaded it up in the default layout here, and you can see you've got scenes, and if you press that button you get to presets. This preset here was something that I created on the FM3, and it was at 70% CPU. Here on the FM9 we're at 37%, so that seems to add up pretty nicely, that the preset that was 70% is basically half the CPU load on the FM9, so that's nice to know. And so basically what this preset is, by the way, is a reverb in ultra high quality, a plex delay and a pitch echoes thingy. I was using this in the loop, so that's good to know. I think if we do this, we can change to different views, different layouts even. So we can have a looper layout, and that's what that looks like. And then we roll our foot again, we can get to scenes layout, go between presets and scenes like that. What else have we got? More effects, so you could have kind of the effects which are included in there then empty, so an empty layout. But yeah, those are just a few of the kind of options that you've got there. I believe you'd be able to set up the OMG9 layout if you wanted to as well. Obviously, and these layouts are super flexible, so I think what I'd probably end up doing would be having scenes over here and then individual effects over here. So you know, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd probably have this toggling scene 1 and scene 5, scene 2 and scene 4 or whatever, and the others, and then I'd switch effects on and off over here, I think, and also have a tap tempo. Good so far. So really impressed. Again, about double the CPU power of the FM3, as well as the ability to run dual amps, I think are the two main arguments that you're going to have for grabbing an FM9. If you were considering an Axe FX3 and an FC6, I think this has a good reason for existing. And again, if you've got an FM3 and an FC6, this has a great reason for existing. The only kind of downsides that I can see are size compared to the FM3. This might be a little bit trickier to fit into like a fly rig and get around, but again, this isn't huge. Let me just grab a Helix for comparison. So compared to the Helix, you know, it's a little bit narrower, so a little bit smaller in basically all dimensions than the Helix. So, and I think the added flexibility of having more outputs if you need them. You've got that extra output 3, full set of double XLR outputs as well. 2 sets of those, as well as increased CPU. I guess those are kind of the main headlines I can see for why the FM9 exists. And I think this is actually the natural successor to the Fractal Axe 8. So the FM3 was a little bit different to the Axe 8 in that it jumped down to just 3 buttons. And although they're fairly flexible, I think there were a lot of people out there that thought that's not really what I'm looking for from a Fractal floor modeler. Some people like the amount of buttons on there. Now I think the FM9 is the natural kind of successor to that Fractal Axe 8 experience. I think the user interface is a massive leap above what the Fractal Axe 8 would have had. So if you've been waiting to upgrade to the FM3 because you're thinking that's not really for me, I've got a Fractal Axe 8, I need those extra buttons, I think now the FM9 might be the time to jump on. Also, in terms of showing you what's possible, here is a little preset that I put together, and this hits 57 on the CPU. So we've got an amp, 2 amps, 2 cabs for each cab block, a pitch, a plex verb, 2 ultra high quality reverbs going into a looper, and then out. And you see that's only hitting 57 on the CPU. So 2 ultra high reverbs, as I say, would normally be, you know, quite a significant toll on the CPU. Plex delay is again quite a serious thing, and then 2 amps. So, you know, you could add pretty much what you want, is the sense that I get from this. You could add drive pedals, you could add phasers, you could add all that stuff, but those are the really intensive blocks that I've found, and you know, we're only hitting 57% on the CPU, so that's good news, I think.